Get started. So first of all, thank you so much for joining today. For people who don't know me, my name is Grace, and I've been with Recruitment for 4 years now, and I look after quality assurance and regulatory affairs positions. As you may know, for the last 15 years, we've been running yearly salary surveys to provide to our clients and candidates an insight into the life sciences employment landscape in Australia. So this year, we've decided to share the results of our surveys through a series of webinars. And today, I will be sharing the data with a focus in quality assurance. My presentation should last around 25 to 30 minutes. And we will be covering the following topics. So first, I will be giving a bit of a background with regards to how the survey was run and when. And then we will look into the cash and the non-cash benefits that are offered and received in the industry. Then we'll move on to the employee experience. So I'll be looking at some job satisfaction data review. And then finally, we will look at the challenges that managers have been experiencing with regards to attracting, managing, and retaining talent. But I guess before we get started, I want to let you know that you will all receive a recording of the webinar along with a copy of the salary and job satisfaction report. And feel free to ask any question as the webinar goes. You can use the bubble chat function on the top right corner of your screen to actually submit your questions. And my colleague Atufa will actually read out the question to me so that I can address them as we go. Great, so let's get started. So this year we had just over 1,000 contributors who were in majority in permanent full-time positions. We were quite lucky to actually have an even split of contributors across different company sizes, which allows for better representation of what's happening in the life science industry. With regards to the survey, we've asked our traditional type of questions around job satisfaction, but we've also expanded on COVID-19 related questions to understand how businesses and employees have been dealing with the pandemic. I guess another important thing to bear in mind whilst looking at the data is that the survey was conducted in June, July, early this year. So partway through it, Sydney had gone into lockdown. So please bear that in mind when looking at the results. I guess now we'll move on to the quality assurance because that's what we're interested in today. And we had 66 contributors across a range of different job titles, including QA manager, senior QA associate, or head of QA. And I guess it's quite important to note from which industry they come from. So we had 18% of our QA contributors coming from the manufacturing industry, 14% from the pharmaceutical industry, like looking at pharmaceutical companies, and then 14% were working at medical device companies, 12 with OTCs, and 9% from the food industry. So it's quite an even split with regards to our core sectors in the life sciences sector. So now looking at the cash and non-cash benefits, we will start with focusing on, pay rises over the last 12 months. So we define someone to be eligible for a pay increase if they've been employed by the same company for at least 12 months. So this year, the percentage of respondents who were eligible for a pay increase is aligned with last year's percentage. So 64% this year compared to 65% last year. And I guess it's important to note that before COVID, that percentage was sitting at 77%. So we're not there yet. And I guess there's still a lot of freeze with regards to the COVID-19 pandemic. But one good thing is actually 62% of the people who did receive a pay increase received a pay increase that was above the 2% CPI increase. So that shows that the sectors is actually recovering well. So looking at QA, the QA cohort, the percentage of people who did receive a pay increase was 68%. So it's still in line with what we see across the different sectors. I would also like to draw your attention on that number because only 53% of the respondents who changed job in the last 12 months did receive a pay increase. So that number shows that across the industry, non-cash benefits are being more and more valued by people in the industry. So looking at, I guess, the cash benefits, you've got a table there listing all the different salaries against different job titles. I'm not going to go in a lot of details given that you're going to be receiving a copy of the report. However, I want to highlight that these numbers are inclusive of the base salary, superannuation, car allowance when it's applicable, but it excludes bonuses and commissions. On the next slide here, you actually have the same job titles, but separated by industry. So you've got your manufacturing, pharma, medical devices, and then you have your job title there and the number of contributors. I guess a comment I can make is it's quite important to actually differentiate commercial quality position and manufacturing quality type of roles. Manufacturing quality position at the junior to senior associate level, they tend to be not as competitive if you were comparing them to commercial quality type of roles. And I guess another thing to notice there is that pharmaceutical innovator companies tend to be the highest payer. So here you've got the more senior job titles, and I guess for QA manager you can see that the range is quite wide, going from, let's say, the 112,000 in manufacturing to 180,000 for a pharmaceutical ethics company. And sometimes you find it quite difficult to benchmark QA manager positions, given that some companies use a manager title to refer to the fact that they're managing a function, but they're not actually managing people. So you'll find that people who are just managing a function don't tend to get the highest salary. Yeah. Does it align with what you've seen so far, I guess, in the QA market, if you've been applying for jobs or, I guess, recruiting in your team? No? Or do you have any question in that regard to the slide? Okay. So I'm guessing no questions. Again, if you want to submit a question, you can just click on the top right corner of your screen, and I'll do my best to address your question. So moving on to the non-cash benefits, flexible working hours and working from home are always top of the list. I guess one thing to note is that professional development and further studies appears in the top 5 most valued benefits. And I guess this has been consistent over the past few years. So if your company offers this, then it would be worth promoting it during the recruitment process as differentiating points when trying to get a candidate across the line. I do want to say as well that, again, with regards to quality assurance, it's important to split manufacturing quality and commercial quality. Obviously, when you look at the data for people who work in manufacturing quality, what they tend to value the most is on-site parking and time in lieu, because obviously working from home is not a possibility. Sorry. So moving on to the job satisfaction data. So overall, the life sciences industry tend to be a quite satisfied cohort. They tend to be engaged in their role and passionate about what they do. When it comes to the QA market, it's actually quite similar. 76% of our QA contributors have declared being satisfied or very satisfied about their role. This is fantastic in terms of retention, but it makes it more difficult for a manager or company looking to recruit new staff. When it comes to looking at the reason why people have left their employer, so people left for more money, lack of job satisfaction, and excessive workload. Excessive workload didn't used to be in the top 3 of reason for leaving previous employer. It's actually the first time we have it there, and I guess it demonstrates that the freeze linked to the COVID-19 pandemic has had an impact on people and businesses. The third reason for leaving previous employer used to be the lack for career opportunities. And I guess then you can see that non-cash benefits are actually more and more important because people have been staying with their employer in the industry for flexibility in the workplace, supportive management style, and opportunity for career advancement. So looking at the QA sectors, it's quite aligned with what we've seen in the previous slide. And I guess the excessive workload is there, the lack of job satisfaction. And again, if you do have the opportunity to provide training and professional development to your team, please do so. So we've also looked at, I guess, well-being and mental health in our industry. And 84% of people who contributed to the survey have mentioned to be moderately stressed with regards to their position. And I guess it's linked to that excessive workload that has been going on over the last 12 months due to the restriction around increasing either permanent or contractor headcount. And I guess we see this even when we speak with hiring managers, right? They are quite keen to get people who will be able to hit the ground running because they don't have enough time to actually train people. And I guess that reduces the pool of candidates and also the opportunity for new candidates to enter a market. But I guess even though people are feeling very stressed about work, the good thing is that people in our sectors are actually quite good at going to the manager with regards to stress-related issues, mental well-being issues, or not feeling really safe at work with regards to the COVID-19 policies. We'll now move on to the last part of the webinar, which is more around the challenges around attracting, retaining, and managing talents. So on an average, in our industry, it takes 1, if you're really lucky, to 10 weeks to fill a job vacancy, and that would be the same for QA positions. Most QA managers have declared to fill their position between 6 and 10 weeks. The reasons why people have been declining a job offer have been around receiving an offer from another company or actually receiving a counter offer from the current employer. But the question around counter offer is whether the person would actually stay long term. Most of the time, after 6 months, the person starts looking for new opportunities and leave the business altogether. One thing to note is that QA managers last year have declared that the only reason why people or candidates have declined their offer, it was because they've been offered a job by another company. And it's not surprising given that 67% of the QA managers have declared that they have recruited over the last 6 months. So looking at the challenges that QA managers have experienced, I guess 50% of them have reported that it had become more difficult to attract and retain talent. And maybe just to give you a bit more context, out of the 66 QA contributors, we had 33 managers. And I guess with regards to getting permanent headcount, it's also a challenge. So I guess in that climate, we're wondering how managers and businesses are going to be able to alleviate the concerns with regards to the excessive workload if they're struggling to attract, retain new talent, but also increase their headcount. Sure. So I guess here is just a slide to show you what the dynamics have been in the market. You can see that in the last 12 months, only 38% of people across all sectors have been applying or considering new job opportunities, but they're actually quite successful at getting a job offer, given that when people do apply, 59% receive a job offer. When it comes to quality assurance, and if we compare it to, I guess, other sectors, they are the cohort who has applied for jobs, who has the most applied for jobs over the last 12 months, which I guess it's good for companies looking to recruit new staff. And what we found throughout the surveys is that a lot of different sectors have been struggling with getting candidates across the line once they extend an offer to a candidate, but that hasn't been the case in quality assurance, given that 88% of the QA managers who did extend an offer to a candidate received a positive answer to their offer. So I guess that's quite good. Finally, we also ask a question around hiring remote workers. Now that COVID has shifted the way we work, as you see, 29% across the industry have confirmed that they would actually consider recruiting someone that is, for example, not based in Sydney, that would be fully remotely based, let's say, in Perth. So that's a good thing when it comes to looking at increasing the pool of suitable candidates when the market is so, I guess, competitive. And in the QA market, actually 33% of the managers said that they'd be open to consider full-time remotely based staff. I guess I'd like to finish on that slide to maybe give managers a bit more insight on what they can do to actually retain the staff that they currently have. So flexibility in the workplace, I guess, is now a given in the industry if you currently work in an office. And I guess companies who are looking to go back to the way we worked before COVID are going to struggle to attract but also retain their talent. And satisfactory salary and job securities are two, I guess, factors that people really take into consideration in the QA sector to stay within their current employer. And it's actually quite different to people who worked in the regulatory affairs sector, where I guess all the key reasons for staying with their current employers were around non-cash benefits. So that included flexibility to work from home, job satisfaction, but also supportive management with line managers. I guess this is the end of the webinar. I hope this webinar was able to provide you with some valuable insight into the QS sectors. Thank you again for people who have contributed to a survey. And if you haven't, please do so next year so we can have really good data to share with you again. Just a reminder that you will actually receive a recording of the webinar along with a copy of the salary and job satisfaction report. And I'd be happy to answer any question you may have, but also understand whether there's any insight I could share with you with regards to what your challenges has been with regards to either recruiting or retaining your staff. So please feel free to submit your question in the chat, and I'll be happy to answer them.
Hi everyone, my name is Atufa. I'll be reading out the questions from our chat to Grace. So we've got one question, Grace, from Chantel. She has asked, hi, will we receive a report for all sectors or just QA? So I'll just quickly answer this question. Chantel, you'll be receiving the report for all sectors, but you'll also get a recording of the webinar where Grace has gone through all of the stats in detail about the QA sector. Hope that answers the question. Any more questions, please feel free to leave it in the comments section.
Anything you've seen throughout the webinar that you felt did not align with your experience and you'd like a bit more clarification on?
Okay.
Someone is typing a question, I can see.
Yep.
We have two people typing questions, so just bear with us.
Okay, so we've got a long question. Do you want me to read that out, Grace?
Please go ahead.
Yep. So it says, you've emphasized the importance of flexible work and remote hiring. However, this does not take into account office or auditing on site. Was this a consideration in the survey?
Sure. I guess we haven't seen that as a key major challenge to include in the survey, given that, for example, what we're trying to say is that we would be someone would be auditing could be actually be based remotely and travel when need be. I think in Australia, except from Australian-owned business, most global pharmaceutical or medical device companies tend to have their own auditing team. Manufacturing site obviously would be a bit different given that you have to be on site and you can't really work from home. But what we're trying to say here in the survey is that if there is an opportunity for your employees to have some flexibility to work from home or be based remotely, please do so, because nowadays candidates are taking that for granted. Hope that answered the question. Okay.
Any more questions, or it looks like that's it?
Yeah, sure. Thank you everyone for attending the webinar. And as my colleague Atufa shared, we'll be sending a copy of the salary survey and the job satisfaction report shortly. Thank you. Oh, I think there's another question there. Atufa, can you see another question coming through?
Yeah, it looks like we've got a couple of people typing, so maybe we can.
Yeah, we can just stay online.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got another question. The current media reports are indicating a large percentage of resignations from wider industry. Did you see this in any of the data or other indicators?
It's a good point. We actually haven't seen that yet, but we're expecting to see that here in our survey next year. So the survey we've completed was, I guess, looking at the year 2020 up to July 2021, but I definitely think it's something that's going to come through during our 2022 survey.